What people around you really value, that you solve problems, that you can get things done. If you can get things done, you are hugely valued by your team. You find people who are really good at describing a problem, and then you have people who can work through the logic of all of that and just execute and get things done. Those people are just invaluable.
Be a team player, make friends, and get things done. And if you do that, you'll fly.
Absolutely. My name is Ike Hussain. I'm the Group CEO of Hiscox, a global insurance company, and we employ just over 3,000 people. And this is my duvet flip.
How do we convince those waiting for the perfect job you should go and get some work experience?
If you haven't got a job, get any job. If you can't get a paid job, get a voluntary job, because you're still learning something. Even when you have a choice, don't sit around doing nothing.
If you don't have a job, go and do any job.
Insurance is something I absolutely love. It is such a useful service that insurance companies provide. It's behind almost everything that happens in society. I find it's good for the soul. I come to work every day knowing that if we get this right, we're helping people build businesses, we're helping people build homes and live out their dreams, and that feels good. And that's what insurance does. If you just have a bad day at work and you make a mistake, we can come in and protect.
We sit down again in 25 years' time. What legacy have you left on the industry?
Hopefully I'm wearing a Speedo somewhere on a beach. 25 years from now.
And my final question, are you ready? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
That's a tough one.
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto chi sei, chi sei.
It's so hot. I need to have a hot drink.
Oh, you mean out? Yeah, it is. It's quite muggy out there, isn't it?
And then I've got a hot drink, but I need a hot drink because when it's a conversation, it just comfort.
Right.
Having something in your hand.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I tell you, I do. I prefer it hot though.
Yeah.
I do. I just don't like wearing a suit, but I do like it hot.
You just take the suit off.
Wow.
Yeah, if you've got clients and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. I don't wear a tie, so at least there's that.
So it's a mix in between then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it depends. Some days I don't wear a suit, but we're quite relaxed. Right.
Keep it simple. So you've had an interesting career. So from a waiter to a biscuit factory to working for one of the biggest consultancy firms to tech and media company to banking to insurance. I want to cover it all. So I want to start with being a waiter.
Okay.
First job.
Yeah.
You become a waiter. What did you learn on that job?
Well, firstly, I think taking the job as a waiter was. It was essential. I mean, I'm from a northern town, second generation immigrant. My parents from Pakistan. If I didn't work, then I wouldn't be able to do much else. We didn't have a great deal. We had enough, but not a great deal. So it was essential. But what I learned in that first job was. Essentially, it's just people skills, how to deal with people. You meet people from all walks of life. And then working with a bunch of people. I was very lucky. I was working with a bunch of people who were actually relatively young. I was 16. I think the guy who owned the restaurant was only in his mid-20s. And what I really learned is how you can work effectively as a team and how much fun it is. No matter what the job is, what the work content is. If you're really lucky, the work content is going to be really interesting and you're going to love it. But what really makes work a pleasure and a joy, the people that you're working with. And that was incredible. I had such a fantastic team around me that I learned so much from, and we just had fun. I actually had a lot of fun at work. The customers were great most of the time.
And when you normally go into a job, you go through different organisations work in different ways, and you'll go through several interviews and assessments and all that stuff. You don't always get to meet the team you're going to work with. What do you do in that situation? What about if you went into that restaurant and the 20-odd-year-old founder, owner wasn't that nice, the people you work with was a bit stuck up? What would you have done?
Firstly, it depends on your circumstance, right? So if you have a choice, then I would suggest you take a bit of time, learn a lot more about the organisation, read about it, talk to other people who work there. If you can, when you're, the restaurant is a bit more tricky, but if you're working, say, in the city or in a larger organization, ask to speak to other people. And if they decline that, then maybe that tells you something. But if you can ask to speak to other people are generally just very honest. And you can ask them some pointed questions about what it's like to work there. So you can find out a lot about the organization through that. These days, you can find out a lot by looking on Glassdoor and various other mechanisms. And I would always encourage people to do that. But that's if you have a choice. When I was 16, I didn't have a choice.
You talk about you didn't have a choice. What are those things that if a person was sitting there and saying, I tick 3 of those boxes, I clearly don't have a choice. And the reason why I'm asking this is because, like you said, not everyone has a choice. But there is also a sense of entitlement where to work with people. And if it's not a job at TikTok paying 100k and you just come out of uni, I don't want to do any other job. Sometimes you have to take a job because you don't have a choice.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a perfect job straight away.
No.
And it takes years and years to find that job that becomes the perfect job. So what I want to discuss and try and get to the bottom of is, how do we convince those who's waiting for the perfect job, who have been unemployed for a bit of time, they've got a bit of entitlement and they're waiting for that perfect job and it'll never come along. And really, deep down, they don't have a choice. What would you be saying, well, if this is happening in your life, then you don't really have a choice. You should go and get some work experience.
I guess my philosophy has been, throughout life is do whatever needs to be done, right? So if you haven't got a job, get any job, really. It's better to be occupied and learn something. It's been the same advice I give to my children, which is, if it's in the summer, now get a job. Don't sit around, because you're going to learn something. If you can't get a paid job, get a voluntary job, because you're still learning something. So work in a charity shop, you're doing some good, you're going to learn some skills. So whatever situation, or most situations you're in, even when you have a choice, don't sit around doing nothing, right? While you're exercising your choice. Go and learn something, do something, be a gardener, work with an ice cream vendor. These are all jobs that I've tried for a few days or weeks, because sitting around waiting for the perfect job is never going to come. And frankly, if you're 18 or 20 or 25 or 30, you don't know what the perfect job is, right? I mean, frankly, I have to say, if I apply to myself, I don't think I knew exactly what I wanted to do until I was 40.
I think that's brilliant advice, because I like what you said. If you don't have a job, go and do any job, because then that actually helps you. If you've not got a job and you've been out of work for a bit of time, don't be fussy.
No.
Go and get a job, learn on that job. In fact, some of the things that you don't like doing ends up becoming the things that you do like doing,
Right.
because you're scared in your gut. It's that gut feeling, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, I mean, often people don't like doing something because they think they're not good at it. Well, we're not good at anything until we practice, right? And once you practice, you get better at it, and then you figure out, okay, I really like this because I'm good at it and I'm making a difference. We all want to make a difference, but you don't do that on day one. You've got to learn some skills. You've got to learn how to do these things. A personal hobby of mine is motor racing. I like to watch, but I also like to race cars. And I've been doing that for quite a while.
So you went from the restaurant to a biscuit factory.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, working in a biscuit factory. So I used to do that every summer from uni, when I was back from uni. And it was a really good experience. It was the cleanest environment I've ever worked in, and it was awesome. But what I learned there was that what people around you really value, that you solve problems, that you can get things done. If you can get things done, the simplest of things, then you are hugely valued by your team, by your managers, by colleagues around you. In fact, something that comes to mind is I've heard it's a lesson that I've reflected on, and previous managers and leaders that I've worked for have said, but it's most eloquently put by Barack Obama. I was watching a YouTube video a few years ago where he said, just learn to get stuff done. And you find people who are really good at describing a problem or explaining why something can't be done. And then you have people who can work through the logic of all of that and just execute and get things done. Those people are just invaluable. That skill, I would say it's more of a mindset, is incredibly valuable.
What you're saying, which I subscribe to, is when you go into an organisation and you're starting out in your career, or you're starting out in a new industry, you don't know much. Don't try and be the expert, but go in, be a team player, make friends, and get things done on what you're asked to get done.
Yeah.
And if you do that with that mindset, you'll fly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, what I find is making connections is incredibly important, right? And when you're from, and I thought in my experience, when you're from my sort of background, from the working class, you don't always value or think you need to make lots of connections. You think, actually, if I just do a good job, that will be enough.
Because no one tells you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I grew up in a council estate. I had 3 nights a week without dinner.
Right.
It was tough.
Yeah.
No one tells you to connect, to not burn bridges, to actually listen. And you actually, since I've become an entrepreneur and a business leader, the connection's so important.
Absolutely, hugely important, because in the end, we're all human, right? And when you're thinking of opportunities, yes, you're going to have a criteria for, I want somebody with a particular set of skills and experience, but you're also going to think, there's somebody I met 3 months ago who wanted to do this type of work, and okay, maybe I'll just give them a call and let them know about the opportunity. Because often it's just, you don't know where to go. When you're from that sort of background, you don't know where to go, who to speak to, where do the jobs work, how do you get one of these jobs? And so making connections, making friends, letting people know who you are and a little bit about what your interests are is incredibly valuable, but a really undervalued skill or activity amongst young people from a particular background. And I would always encourage them, try and go to, if you get an invite, or if you can't, try and get an invite to conferences, or if you're to dinners or wherever it is, and just say hello. Just let people, just be curious about them. And I think if you're curious about the people that you're around, they will respond and be curious about you and want to find out about you, and they'll remember you.
From my background, and clearly from yours, connections felt like, for me, like 7 years ago when I entered the workplace, and I've still got so much more to learn and grow. I felt connections was hidden behind a curtain, and I couldn't access them. But what's your advice to anyone who comes from backgrounds like you and I? We don't get access to these fancy art dinner parties when we're starting out. We stay in our bubble. We won't go out and travel as much because it's expensive to travel.
Yeah.
What is your advice? If you were to do it right now, again, you were to go back right again, you just left the biscuit factory.
Yeah.
You've got all the knowledge that you've got as a fantastic global CEO. What would you do? What was your advice to young Charlie, young Abdul, Jenny? What would you do?
I'm not going to say it's easy, because it isn't when you're from that sort of background. But you've got to have some belief and determination, right? Without that belief and determination, I think which you displayed by meeting however many potential investors, without that, it's difficult to succeed, because these things don't land on a plate for you, because we don't have the connections. So you've got to go out and find them. You've got to go out and meet them. So even then, when I was about 17, 18, my way in was I wrote to tens of companies I had very limited experience. I'd been a waiter and I'd worked in a biscuit factory, but I was studying. So I wrote to probably FTSE 100 companies. I wrote to KPMG, many accountancy firms, explaining who I was, what I was, how I could potentially add value, why I was interested in their business. And you know what? Some responded. Right? And all you need is one response.
You need one, don't you?
That's it. And that just opens the door. And maybe you don't get that opportunity, but it gives you the confidence, and maybe they point you in a different direction. And that's exactly what happened with KPMG. I'd applied for a summer internship, if I remember rightly, and I applied to loads. And eventually KPMG responded and said they didn't have a summer internship for me. I was too late. But they had this 1 week residential course in Birmingham at the time. And if I wanted to, I could go there. And I did. And at the end of it, they offered me an interview.
And that's all it takes is one, right?
That's it.
I've never shared this, how I got my first investment. So I grew up in Essex. And when you're in Essex, it's a different type of culture. It's all about what you're wearing, what you look like. That's what it's like. So I was kind of convinced to use a sunbed, which was so. So you know what? I went into this sunbed shop, and the day I went in, and this guy had chains everywhere across Essex. The day I went into the sunbed shop, he was in there. I was like, "Oh, you got a business? How is it? 'Cause I was interested in entrepreneurship." He said, "Let's meet for a coffee." So I went and met him for a coffee. And in a coffee shop, he agreed to give me £100,000.
Wow.
It goes straight to your point. It takes one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and that £100,000 turned into 4 million. Because you get one,
Yeah.
and then you get another one, and it grows.
Right.
So what I'm hearing, which I love, is you need to put yourself out there.
You do.
You need to ask the questions, whether that's in the form of an application, a letter, speaking. Oh, you're in this company, KPMG. Who do you know?
Right. Right. No, exactly. That's exactly right. Look, it's hard, but you have to put yourself out there. Hiscox is the world's leading insurer for kidnap and ransom.
So, biscuits to banking.
Yes.
Tell me how that happened, because I love biscuits and I love putting money in the bank. So
Fantastic.
I'm really excited for this part. So biscuits to banking.
Yeah.
I know there's things in between, but we're going to skip those bits. KPMG and the tech and media company. How did you get into banking?
Well, I think it's worthwhile just stepping into at least one of those.
Okay, let's do that.
Because it was a route into banking. Anyway, after KPMG, I went into the technology and media sector, because I was bursting with ideas at the age of, 27, 28. And I thought, well, if I join a business that's doing really well, I'm not going to get to try anything because, well, I don't have enough experience. I haven't done anything yet. So I just happened to be approached by a company I didn't know they were going through that process. But in the last interview, the group CFO said, look, I was under NDA, so I couldn't talk about it. They said, we're filing for bankruptcy protection. Do you still want to join? And I thought, awesome, this is great. I'm going to love it. So I said, yes, I will join. And then they gave me a choice of 3 businesses. And I asked them which was the worst performing. And they said the South business unit. I said, that's the one I'd like to join. And that's where I was. So I joined a backup company and the worst performing business in that backup company. Solely because I thought, here's where I can try out all my untested ideas. And I did. And some of them worked.
I think that's
worked
brilliant.
really well.
I love that. Go and join a business that's underperforming, where you can go in and make a mark because they're looking for solutions, right?
That's it. If I go back to what I was saying earlier, solve problems.
Oh, you're a smart one, aren't you?
The bigger problems you can find to solve, then one, you're testing yourself, but you're also demonstrating that you can really add value to people around you and to the business. I also had an awesome group of people working with me. They were just an incredible team, very focused on what we're trying to achieve. That then took me on to banking, because I got to a particular stage with this company where I kind of gone through the ranks relatively quickly. but it wasn't quite big enough to give me all the training and the rounded experiences that I needed. So I was speaking to some headhunters and said, look, if you want that sort of experience, you've got to go to banking. But banks don't hire people. This was back in the mid-2000s. They don't hire people if you haven't been trained and brought up in banking. And for me, that was like a red rag to a bull, which is, well, that's another challenge. It's a problem to be overcome. And so what I asked the headhunter was, look, just get me one interview, please. If you just let me have one go, and then we'll see. And the rest is history. I got an interview, met a great guy, a gentleman by the name of Tim Tuckey, who then hired me into Lloyds Bank. And I was there for just over 3 years.
Wow.
As the finance director of the consumer bank. It's a very interesting experience because it was also, and if you go looking for big problems, it was also just a year or 18 months before the global financial crisis hit. So that was a really interesting and actually challenging time to be working in banking when it seemed that the whole banking infrastructure was going to melt down around you. Having a calm head, having that determination to succeed, and having a great team around you of like-minded individuals who are just going to come in and get on with it and try and do the best they can for customers who are relying on you day in, day out, really goes through that period.
So trouble doesn't find you, you find trouble and you sort it out? Because you go into organisations and you go, oh, what can I do to make it better?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think it's something like when I look back on, and that's been a pattern and a character trait, that, yes, I've looked for areas, looked for problems to solve. One, because I find it really interesting, it's exciting. And you're really helping. You're helping customers, you're helping colleagues, you're helping the business thrive. And it's a lot of fun.
How did you go from banking into insurance?
So again, this is where connections are important, because I didn't know there was an opportunity in insurance. But a headhunter in the industry that I'd met 10 years before gave me a call and said, I'd like you to meet this gentleman who's running an insurance company. I was very happy where I was. I said, I'm very happy. I don't really want to take that time. But she knows me really well. She said, I think you're going to really get on with him. You're really going to get on with him. And I met him, and we did. And he offered me a job. But the job was interesting, right? In that I asked him what the job was. He said, I'm not sure. What are we going to do? I said, we'll have some fun, right? Well, it's going to be an interesting journey. And I left a job at a really good institution, having a lot of fun. I was a finance director of the consumer bank, very secure, lots of people working with me. And I went to this other job where I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I was promised some fun. And I had nobody. It was just me on my own, and I was given an assistant.
So you got offered this job. You didn't know what it was, but you was promised a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you went from a stable, sound, knowing what's going on, organisation and job, to a role where you think this could lead in any direction.
Right.
But I'm going to have fun and I'm going to take the risk and go for it.
Yes.
So what happened?
I had a lot of fun.
You had a lot of fun.
So much fun. I learned a whole new industry, and I would say I found my place, because insurance is something I absolutely love, and I didn't know much about it when I was in banking or in media and tech. It is such a useful thing, useful product and service that insurance companies provide to society. It's behind almost everything that happens in society. So I find it's good for the soul. I come to work every day knowing that if we get this right, and we're trying every day to get it right and better, then we're helping a lot of people. We're helping people build businesses. We're helping people build homes, live out their dreams, and that feels good. The concept of insurance has been around a long time, but the modern version of an insurance contract was first established about 700 years ago in Italy.
I use this saying, we need to build more money powers for young people. And if young people can build their toolkit of money powers, and in money powers, there's pensions, there's insurance, there's savings, there's investments, there's debt, managing good and bad debt, but we won't obviously get into that. But the insurance part, where have we let the next generation down so far? And what do we need to do to kind of get them to understand it? And
look, insurance is not always straightforward to understand, and we haven't done a fantastic job in demystifying essentially what it is. So there's a whole lot of education, communication, outreach that we as an industry need to do to help people understand. Essentially, not just the youth, but people in general, because there's a huge amount of underinsurance that happens, that goes on. And for me, because the most sort of prosaic example is we have one of the things that we specialize in is small businesses. And often those small businesses have one employee. It's the person who runs the business. And the products that we have can really help them avoid effectively going under because they've made one mistake, which anybody can make. Right? And that's what insurance does. It takes that bit of risk away from you. That, okay, if you just have a bad day at work and you make a mistake, we can come in and protect. And we can also give you a bit of advice on how to avoid those situations. And therefore you can go on to fight another day and build a bigger business, help your family. We avoid that risk of ruin. But getting that message out there, we haven't done a fantastic job on all the benefits of insurance. Both the product, but also the fantastic careers that you can build within an insurance business. So that's something I'm pretty keen on doing, is that outreach program, to whether we do it to the communities that are around each of the offices where we operate, to universities, to schools, and to the wider sort of business community as well.
We sit down again in 25 years' time. You still got really cool hair and looking 40. Where would you say the insurance industry's gone? What does it look like? What legacy have you left on the industry? Still in the industry? What's happened?
Hopefully I'm wearing a Speedo somewhere on a beach 25 years from now. In terms of the industry, the sort of things that we're focused on now, which I hope over time really make a huge difference, is really reducing the barriers or obstacles to buying insurance. And that can be, I don't really understand it. Does it really apply to me? I don't know how to buy it. And making all of those aspects of buying insurance really simple. So technology is going to play a big part in that, but also communication, helping people understand. We're already beginning to use aspects of generative AI to reduce the friction, reduce the complication of some of our products, to reduce the price wherever one can. But really, just to make that what I would call in the business the customer journey, the point from which you think you need insurance, the point which you actually have to where you buy, make it really easy as possible. And we've been at this a long time. The industry's been at this for hundreds of years. I don't know how much difference we're going to make over 25 years, but I hope firstly insurance is much better understood, but we have a big job to do there. And secondly, I hope the journey to buy insurance is a lot easier than it can be today, because it's such a useful product, such a useful service that reduces risks and allows you to go and live your life and live out your dreams and build your businesses and buy your homes and cars.
I agree. And I think you started that journey already by being on the show. because you've just made it really simple and clear what insurance means, where it's going, why it's important. So, what as CEO, we've only got time for one or two more questions, but as CEO, what's one fundamental thing that you know? Because you joined Issox in 2016,
Yes.
you're CFO, you become Group CEO in 2022. What's one life lesson that from CFO to CEO, now you're CEO, that has taught you about life that you wish you knew back in that restaurant or biscuit factory or KPMG or the tech company or Lloyd's? What's something that you've learned recently that has now become one of your life principles?
That's a tough one, actually. It's not quite a life principle, but one of the things that I've learned as the group CEO is that, or a couple of things I've learned as a group CEO is you have a magic wand when you become the group CEO, and if you wave it, things happen. People just do stuff, and you've got to be very careful, right? Very careful. Use it very sparingly, because people do stuff, and sometimes that's not what you want to happen, and people listen to every word and nuance when you're speaking, and therefore you've got to be authentic. You've got to say what's on your mind, but also be aware about how people might interpret it. So that's something that I've has been a lesson over the last couple of years. And the other one is that on the one hand, as a group CEO, you own everything and you're accountable for everything. But in reality, you don't own anything because you can't do anything. You can only do whatever needs to be done through your team, and therefore having the most brilliant people around you who will solve the big problems is so essential. And it's more essential as a group CEO than any other role. But I would say it's a lifelong lesson that you can pick up freely from day one. Whether you're a waiter, having some great people around you there, or in a biscuit factory or a consultancy, it's always about the people.
So surround yourself with good people.
That's it.
Watch where you swing that magic wand.
Yes.
Because your voice can actually make an impact for the good or bad.
That's it.
So choose your words and your voice carefully. But while choosing your words carefully, be authentic in the process.
That's it.
What a fantastic life lesson. And my final question, are you ready? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
What gets me out of bed in the morning? I genuinely look forward to coming into work because it's such an energetic place because of the people that I work with. And at the end of the day, I really look forward to going home to see my wife and children. So it's just, people give me energy.
Well, I just want to say thank you for joining me on the show, for spending some of your time. I know you're a really busy CEO, changing the insurance industry day by day, but just thank you for coming in, being so authentic, so honest, sharing your knowledge. You didn't have to do this, but you care about the next generation, so thank you.
Not at all. Thank you.
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto